Before you fall asleep tonight, make sure you're somewhere safe and comfortable. Put on your headphones, close your eyes, and let the rain guide you into the darkness. You're about to hear 3 scary stories to fall asleep to. Real, eerie, and whispered beneath the storm. If you enjoy stories that chill your mind while you drift into sleep, don't forget to subscribe. Now, take a deep breath. The rain is falling. The night begins. Story 1. The Lost River Camping Trip. In my late teens and early 20s, I was a venture scout, a leader for the camping trips my local Boy Scout troop took. I was one of the few women involved, but my brother was in the troop for years, and I'd become friends with everyone. After completing youth protection training, I was allowed to join as a trip leader and chaperone. One of my closest friends there was a guy I'll call John. He'd been part of the troop forever and was already a seasoned scout leader. In November 2018, we were assigned to lead the troop's annual fall canoe trip, a 2-day float down the Lost River in Missouri. Now, if you've never seen the Lost River, picture this. It winds more than 100 miles through the Ozark Highlands, surrounded by sheer limestone cliffs and thick pine forest. It's breathtaking, but when the sun sets, it turns black as ink, and the woods feel ancient, like they're holding something in. That afternoon, we made camp about 15 miles downstream from where we launched. The scouts set up their tents about 25 yards upstream, and the campfire crackled between us. As I pitched my tent, I admitted to John that I was a little nervous about sleeping alone for the first time. He just shrugged. "You'll be fine," he said. "Sleeping alone's actually peaceful." Easy for him to say. John had been camping solo for years, sometimes just with a hammock, not even a tent. But the rules were the rules. Males and females couldn't share tents, and as a new leader, I wasn't about to break them. Maybe John noticed my unease because when it came time to sleep, he laid his pad right outside my tent, with his canoe flipped over him like a makeshift coffin. I remember watching him settle in and thinking how fearless he seemed, how different we were. The evening was calm. We ate dinner, told stories, and laughed under the stars. The forest hummed with life. Owls, crickets, the soft rush of the river. For a while, I felt at peace. But that didn't last long. When we finally turned in, I tried to read for a bit, hoping the sound of the river would lull me to sleep. It didn't. The temperature had dropped below freezing, and before long, I needed to pee. The one thing every camper dreads. I held it as long as I could, but eventually, I had no choice. I unzipped my tent, gently tapped John's canoe so he'd know where I was going, and climbed the embankment behind camp to find a bit of privacy. The second I stepped into the woods, the air changed. It was dead silent. Not a cricket, not a whisper of wind, just nothing. That kind of silence doesn't feel peaceful. It feels wrong. It took me years to understand what the primal fear meant, but even then, some part of my brain screamed at me, "Run." I finished as fast as I could, slid down the embankment on my butt, and sprinted back to camp. The sight of the fire's embers and the silver glow of the moon made me feel safe again. Trying to warm up, I remembered an old trick, putting hot stones in your sleeping bag. I dragged 4 or 5 from the fire and tucked them inside. It helped a little, but I still couldn't sleep. The cold bit into my legs until I cried from exhaustion. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, crunching on the river stones. The sound came from downstream, near the edge of camp. My first thought was that one of the boys had gotten up for a midnight swim. So I unzipped my tent and peeked out. Something was standing by the water. At first I thought it was an elk, massive, with long legs and a dark silhouette. But the shape wasn't right. We don't have moose in Missouri, and this thing was too big for a deer. I froze, watching it from the shadows. Then it looked at me. Even from that distance, even in the darkness, I could feel its eyes lock onto mine. A wave of primal terror rolled through me. Every nerve in my body screamed. I ducked back into my tent, zipped it up, and didn't move for the rest of the night. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. The silence outside was suffocating. Then, just before dawn, someone tapped on my tent. "Come on out," they said. "It's time to go." My heart jumped. Finally, morning. I sighed in relief, slipped on my boots, and stepped outside. But it wasn't morning. The moon still hung in the sky. The forest was black and still, and there was no one there. The voice had come from right beside my tent, but in the few seconds it took for me to unzip and step out, whoever or whatever it was had vanished. That icy prickle crawled up my spine again, stronger this time. And then a voice in my head whispered, "Don't turn around." I froze. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't. Slowly, I backed into my tent and zipped it shut with shaking hands. I buried my face in my sleeping bag and prayed until I finally drifted into a restless, half-conscious sleep. When I woke, sunlight was pouring through the fabric of my tent. I heard John talking to one of the scouts outside. Relief flooded through me. I'd made it. When I stepped out, John looked at me with wide eyes. "Geez," he said. "You look like you didn't sleep at all. Did you come to my tent last night?" I stared at him. "No. Why? Did you come to mine?" He frowned. "No, of course not. I wouldn't mess with you like that. But I did hear you walking around a few times, up the embankment, back down, then near the tents." He pointed toward the woods. "Next time, just use a bottle, okay? You were up there half the night. The world tilted beneath me. I only went up there once. If it wasn't me, then who or what had been walking around camp? What had John heard stepping near my tent again and again, and why? Hadn't I heard it too? I've told this story to people before, and most just laugh it off. They say I was dreaming or half delirious from the cold, but I wasn't asleep. I remember every second, the silence, the voice, that shadow by the water. So now I wonder, what exactly is hiding in the woods along the Lost River? Story 2, The Closing Shift. I work at a restaurant in a small town called Riverside, Missouri, and for the past year, I've been the one responsible for locking up at the end of the night. It's easy money, really. I get paid an extra hour just to clean, roll silverware, and reset for the morning crew. After a long, chaotic night in the kitchen, that quiet hour alone is usually my favorite part. Usually. Most nights, the place is empty long before I'm finished. I don't even bother checking the bathrooms anymore because, honestly, no one ever sticks around that late. But there's something eerie about being in a restaurant after closing. What was once filled with the hum of conversation and clattering dishes becomes hollow. Every sound echoes. The hum of the freezers, the distant rattle of the air ducts, and every now and then the crash of the ice machine dropping a load of cubes, always loud enough to make my heart skip. The layout of the restaurant makes things worse. The main light switches are on the opposite side of the building from the alarm keypad near the side exit. So my closing routine goes like this. I lock both the front and back doors, shut off all the lights, and then have to walk through the entire dark restaurant to reach the exit. In the beginning, I used the flashlight on my phone to find my way. But over time, I learned the layout well enough to move in total darkness. Somehow, walking quickly through pitch black felt less terrifying than casting shadows with that tiny, flickering phone light. And I hate to admit it, but even as a grown man, the dark still creeps me out. That night started like any other. The restaurant had been closed for nearly 2 hours. The kitchen was spotless. The floors were mopped, and I was just finishing up rolling silverware. I locked the doors, flicked off the lights, and started that familiar walk through the dark dining room. When I reached the keypad, I punched in the alarm code and froze. Error. Infrared motion detected. Dining room. My stomach dropped. I knew I was alone. I'd been in that building for hours. There was no way someone could still be inside. But before I could think, before I could even breathe, I heard footsteps. Loud, fast, heavy footsteps pounding across the tile floor, coming straight toward me from the pitch-black dining room. The sound jolted through me like electricity. I didn't turn around. I didn't stop to think. I just flung the door open, sprinted out into the parking lot, and didn't stop until I reached my car. I fumbled for my keys, hands shaking, and peeled out of the lot. I didn't see or hear anyone following me, but I wasn't taking any chances. A block away, I pulled over and called 911. Then I called my boss. I waited in my car until the police arrived, headlights slicing through the dark as they pulled up beside the restaurant. The side door was wide open. Inside, everything looked untouched. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. The police checked every corner, every room, but found no one. I gave my statement that I'd heard footsteps, that the alarm had picked up the motion in the dining area, and that was that. But then they checked the security footage. There's only one interior camera, the one above the cash registers. It can't see most of the dining room, but the exterior camera, just outside that side exit, captured something that I'll never forget. The footage shows me bursting out of the door, running for my car. A few seconds later, just before the camera's night vision flickers out from the glare of the lights, you can see it. A long, distorted shadow stretching out from beneath the camera, cast against the concrete. Someone, or something, was standing just out of frame, watching me run away. The shadow stayed there for a moment, perfectly still, before turning in the opposite direction and vanishing into the darkness. I've never felt so small, so exposed. Just watching that video, seeing myself bolt out of that door in pure panic, while something watched from only a few feet away, it made my skin crawl. I'm not a believer in ghosts. I don't buy into the paranormal, but I can't explain this. Who waits in a locked restaurant for 2 hours after closing, doesn't steal a thing, and then just disappears? I know it wasn't a coworker. We checked every key, every entry, every security log. No one came in after hours. Everyone who clocked in that day clocked out. So now I'm left wondering, was it a sick prank? Someone unwell? Or was it something else entirely? Something that didn't need to use a door to get in. I still work there, but every night when I shut off those lights, I feel it again. That cold, invisible weight in the air, like someone standing in the dark, waiting for me to leave. Story 3, The Man in the Hat. My name's Carl, and I'll never forget the night I realized I wasn't alone in my own room. It started like any other night. I was exhausted after work, ready to collapse into bed. My dog, a tiny terrier named Luna, was curled up beside me under the blanket. Everything felt calm, familiar, safe, until I woke up and couldn't move. I could see everything around me, my room, the faint glow of the TV on standby, the shadows on the walls, but my body was completely frozen. I couldn't even blink properly. I couldn't breathe. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but I wasn't. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my lungs straining for air. My eyes darted around the room, desperate to make sense of what was happening. That's when I felt it. There was something else in the room, watching me. The air grew thick, almost rotten, like sulfur mixed with acid and something worse, something decayed. The smell clung to the back of my throat. Every instinct screamed that I wasn't alone. The shadows in the corners seemed to shift, the darkness deepening in places where it shouldn't. I could feel him there before I saw him, standing just beyond my vision, hidden in the black. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the closet. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. My throat was locked. My body was still frozen, trapped in some invisible grip. Then he stepped into view. He was tall, impossibly tall, dressed in black from head to toe, with a wide-brimmed hat that cast his face in shadow. But the longer I stared, the more I realized he didn't have a face at all. Just the faint outline of a grin, spreading wider the longer I looked. My entire body was on fire with fear. I couldn't look away. He moved closer, the air crackling around him like static. Finally, I shut my eyes, squeezing them shut as hard as I could, praying he'd be gone when I opened them. But then I felt it. A breath, hot and sour, brushing against my cheek. I opened my eyes and he was inches from my face. That grin, if you could even call it that, stretched impossibly wide now. And though he had no mouth, I could feel the words before I heard them. In a low, raspy whisper, he said, "I watch you sleep at night, so lovely you are. From this night forward, until time ends, I will watch you sleep, again and again." Tears filled my eyes. I could feel them sliding down my cheeks, but I still couldn't move, couldn't scream. I tried to call out to Luna, but she didn't stir. It was like the whole world had gone silent except for him. In my head, I screamed and screamed, until finally, my body caught up. A real scream tore from my throat. I shot up in bed, gasping for air, trembling uncontrollably. My chest heaved as I tried to breathe again. Inhale, exhale. 1, 2, 3. The room was quiet, still. Everything looked the same. The tapestry on the wall, the faint light from the TV screen, my dog curled beside me. but the air still felt wrong, heavy, watching. After I calmed down, I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, just to ground myself. The clock read 3:14 a.m., and then I saw it. A new photo in my camera roll. It showed me lying in bed, eyes wide open, tears streaking down my face, my mouth frozen mid-screen. And over me, leaning close, was the outline of something tall and dark. The figure of a man in a wide-brimmed hat. But what terrified me most were my eyes. In the photo, they didn't look human, just dark, glassy, and empty, like something else had been staring through them. To this day, I can't explain it. Was it sleep paralysis? A hallucination? Or did something really stand there, watching me while I was frozen and helpless? All I know is this. Every night since, I felt that same cold weight in the air when I close my eyes. Like he's still there, still watching.